Flames rose against the horizon, black smoke twisting like a living thing into the dying sky. Radio chatter crackled with urgency, fragments of words and coordinates barely breaking through the static. Somewhere in the mountains below, 381 Navy SEAL were surrounded, pinned down by an enemy force twice their size, their ammunition running low, their extraction route cut off. In the cockpit of her A-10 Warthog, Captain Sarah Callan stared at the map glowing on her HUD, her jaw locked so tight it hurt. She could hear their voices on the emergency channel, steady, disciplined, but carrying that edge of grim finality that every soldier recognized. They were preparing for the last stand. She wasn't supposed to be here. She had been ordered to return to base 2 hours ago, after finishing her close air support run for another unit. The ground commander had made it clear. No more flights over this sector. Too much risk, too much heat from enemy anti-air defenses. But sitting back at base and letting 381 brothers die in silence was not an option her soul could live with. Sarah's hand hovered over the throttle. She thought of the faces she had seen before, the ones who didn't make it. The medals she had been given for them felt like lead on her dress blues, weighing her down at every ceremony. She thought of Jamie, her wingman, who had gone down last year on a mission just like this, and of the way she had stood there in the cold hangar as his helmet was placed on the table. She had saluted, because that was what you do, but she had sworn quietly to him that if she ever had the power to stop it from happening again, she would. Now here it was, the choice. The mountain range spread beneath her like a jagged scar across the earth, the sun burning low and angry on the horizon. Her fingers brushed over the photo taped to the dash, her squadron standing in front of their planes, arms around each other, grins wide. She pushed the throttle forward. Down below, the SEAL were running out of time. Their commander crouched behind a broken wall, mud streaked across his face, his voice calm over the radio even as the sound of small arms fire cracked closer. He told them to hold their line, told them to remember who they were, told them that if this was it, they would make it count. The men didn't speak back. They just nodded, checked their weapons, passed around the last of the ammunition. High above, Sarah's plane dropped lower, hugging the mountains, her heart pounding in rhythm with the engines. She could feel the old Warthog shudder under the strain, feel the rattle of the GAU-8 Avenger cannon beneath her feet. She should call command. She should wait for authorization. Instead, she keyed her mic directly to the ground team. "Steel Rain inbound," she said, her voice steady. There was silence on the channel for a moment, then a single voice, rough and disbelieving. "God, you actually came." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. She banked hard, the world tilting, the mountains flashing past. The first pass came fast, her finger squeezing the trigger, the cannon roaring to life, spitting depleted uranium rounds that tore into the enemy line with earth-shaking force. The ground lit up in flashes, the sky filling with smoke and dirt. Again and again she came back, weaving through tracer fire, the altimeter's screaming warnings she ignored. She flew so low she could see the enemy scrambling, see the muzzle flashes aimed skyward. Every pass she made bought the SEAL a few more precious minutes, pushed the enemy back a few more meters. She was running out of ammunition. Fuel was bleeding away faster than planned. She should turn back. She should save herself. But she didn't. Not while they were still down there. Not while they still needed her. On the ground, the SEAL commander watched the tide turn. For the first time in hours, the pressure eased. His men surged forward, retaking ground, pushing the enemy into retreat. He looked up, caught sight of the A-10 streaking across the sky like a guardian angel, and felt something tighten in his throat. When the last run was done, when her ammo count hit 0, Sarah climbed hard, pulling away from the valley. She was almost out of fuel, the warning lights blinking red across her console, but she didn't care. Below her, she could see the SEALs signaling up at the sky, rifles lifted in silent salute. Back at base, they would call her reckless. They would say she disobeyed direct orders, endangered herself and the aircraft. There would be paperwork, investigations, reprimands, but she knew none of that mattered. You don't measure a pilot by how well they follow rules, she thought, her throat tight as she leveled out. You measure them by who comes home because they refuse to let the rules be the end of the story. When her wheels finally touched down, the runway was lined. Ground crew, mechanics, pilots. Everyone stood in a line as the A-10 rolled to a stop, their hands lifted in salute. No one spoke as Sarah climbed out of the cockpit, her flight suit streaked with sweat, her hair plastered to her face. The SEAL commander was waiting at the edge of the tarmac. He said nothing. He just stepped forward and wrapped her in a hug, so fierce it knocked the breath out of her. Behind him, some of the men she had saved stood at attention, helmets under their arms, faces streaked with dirt and blood but alive. You didn't just save 381 men, the commander finally said, his voice low. You saved everything they were fighting for. Sarah's eyes burned, but she didn't look away. That was never a choice, she said quietly. That was a promise. The story spread quickly. It reached other bases, other units, even the families back home who would never know how close they had come to getting that knock on the door. Some called her reckless, some called her a hero, but for those who had been there, who had heard her voice over the radio, when they thought the sky had forgotten them, she would forever be the reason they were able to see another sunrise. And somewhere in the quiet, Sarah sat alone in the hangar later that night, running her hand over the worn metal of her plane. It bore new scars now, new stories etched into its frame. She thought of Jamie, of all the others who didn't come back, and she whispered to the empty space around her, a vow that needed no witness. Not while I'm still flying. If you felt this story, share it with someone who believes that courage is sometimes breaking the rules to do what's right. Tell us where you're watching from, and remember this. The quiet heroes aren't always the ones we read about in books. Sometimes they're the ones who refuse to let others die in silence.